Hi, everybody. Welcome to Look Around Florida. We got some cool events coming up. I'm getting more and more stuff from camp commanders and brigade commanders and lieutenant commanders. So let me get this out of the way. I got Jim Odell. He's behind the scenes right now. We'll bring him up in a minute. Uh, so welcome to Look Around Florida. I'm your host, Sean McFall. Glad y'all can be here. Love seeing every one of you. If you're in the chat, make sure you say hi so I know you're there. Uh, Keep in mind, we're also on YouTube. So let me get a couple things out of the way. Uh, Division reunion coming up. Hey, Keith, good to see you, buddy. We got division reunion coming up in June. Camp commanders, brigade commanders, lieutenant commanders, please get your stuff in to our division adjutant, division commander as soon as possible. You should all receive the email from our division adjutant, Rick Roberts. With that being in mind, if you haven't signed up for the Florida Division Reunion, please do so. It's going to be a fun time. Please submit your ancestors for the program. It's a way so we can offset our division leadership can offset the cost of the reunion. So, and if you do go to the reunion, you're going to get a special gift. Hey, Victor, Jeff Kahn, Kim Huffaker. Huffecker. Kim, I knew I was going to screw it up one of these days. So, get your stuff in for the division reunion for registration. Like I said, camp commanders, brigade commanders, lieutenant commanders, and adjutants. Please check your email. If you did not get an email from our division adjutant, please let him know so he can add you to the list. That way you can get up-to-date info when that way you can get up-to-date info when it's coming from our division leadership. With that being said, we got Confederate Memorial Day services coming up. I just received this one just a couple minutes ago. Confederate Memorial Day service, Fort Ogden Cemetery, Arcadia, Florida, Saturday, April the 29th. Confederate Cavalry Camp, 2181. Will be having their memorial service in Fort Ogden. Fort Ogden is a special cemetery from my camp because our namesake is buried there. I'm with the Lieutenant Boggess Camp 2150 out of Collier County. So that Lieutenant Boggess is buried there. So we're going to be definitely there supporting our brothers with our Arcadia camp. Besides that, I just got this from the Massies. Their Memorial Day service is at Veterans Park in St. Cloud, Florida, Saturday, April the 22nd, 10 a.m., Jacob Summerlin Camp. And the Osceola Confederate Dames, 2684, United Daughters of the Confederacy. Besides that, there's a couple other ones. Let me bring those up. I hope everybody had a great Easter. I know I did. You probably, if you're on my personal Facebook page, you see what happened to me this weekend. This division. Okay. There we go. Okay. I have another one. I tried to find it. Okay, found it. Woohoo! Hey, Dylan and Leon. Hey, Victor. DM me. I'll give you my email address, and if you want to do it like a brochure, I will definitely put that on the page for you, sir. Uh, okay, this is coming from Bob, the camp commander, the Colonel Samuel St. George Rogers. The current camp 1865, Ocala, Florida is having the third annual Confederate Memorial Day service on Wednesday, April 26th at 6:30 p.m. The service will be held at Confederate Memorial Johnny Reb statue located at Veterans Memorial Plaza in downtown Ocala, Florida. The plaza is located on the southeast corner of East Silver Springs Boulevard and Northeast 25th, Ocala, Florida. After the service, we'll be having a barbecue, potluck, and social hour in the pavilion. Barbecue provided by Camp 1865. Division Lieutenant Commander Daryl Routry will be in attendance, as well as the 5th Brigade Commander Terry Beasley. We'll have a color guard, drum, fife, and we land wreaths at the statue during the service. Well, we have invited other SCV camps in the 5th Brigade to attend as well. Anyone else or any other camps interested in attending, please contact Camp Commander Bob Heisberg. If you need his email address, you want to go, just direct message me through the Facebook or YouTube, and I'll give you that email address. Now I'm trying to find Roy's. For some reason, Roy's came up missing, or I accidentally goofed up and deleted it. So, Roy and Linda, if you can email me that again. Hey, Talisa. Okay, here's a couple updates. Victor Smith, July 11th, Camp 741 will be hosting our Commander-in-Chief, Historian-in-Chief, Forrest Stars at our monthly meeting. Cool. If that's on a weekend, I might drive up for that, Victor. Hey, Beth. Talisa, East Coast Confederate Veterans Motorcade, April the 22nd, from to Miami, meet halfway at Woodlawn Cemetery. Thanks to Lisa. I'm gonna Jim's gonna elaborate on that in a little bit. He's behind the scenes. So I did get a couple emails. If you're in the OCR and you're going to the Florida Division meeting, please register for the OCR meeting. They are doing a vote this year. There's a couple of candidates that are going to be running. I don't want to talk about politics, but there's going to be some voting there for leadership positions. So please attend. If you're in the SCV, register for the SCV reunion. If you're in the OCR, please register for the Florida Division OCR meeting. It will be held at the same place in Trenton, Florida. I love seeing all of you. maybe I can get those two candidates to come on the show and talk about their platform on their positions. That's right. I don't need my headset. Force a habit. Their platforms and what they're planning on doing for the to help out the Florida Division OCR this year. So that'd be kind of cool to see if there would be Kim Stevens and Annette Lindsay. So I'd be looking forward to. I'll reach out to them and see if they would like to come on the show when it gets closer to reunion to talk about their platform. So you guys have the right information now. That way you can vote on that at the Florida Division OCR and SCV meeting. With that being said, here's Jim Odell.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Felicitations and greetings from Southeast Florida. The 12th Brigade is alive and well. And we're going to be talking tonight about my favorite subject. Not many people's subject, but the Navy, the Confederate Navy.
Cool.
And all the good things that our boys did in gray on the beautiful ships.
So, Jim, I know Talisa mentioned it. What's this thing about your motorcade?
Oh, yes. Our Confederate Memorial Motorcade, this is since 1994 we've been doing it. Mike Mitchell, Doyle Rigdon, and Wesley Frank, and quite a few others. Joe Overstreet started doing the motorcade, and it started in Miami in 1994, and it stretched out all the way up to Sebastian. And the 12th Brigade and the 14th Brigade come together, and we start in Sebastian, they start in Miami, and we head towards each other. We honor 177 Confederate veterans in one day, putting a flag on their grave, firing a salute for them, and end up in Woodlawn Cemetery where we have our last hurrah. And we have to be down there by 2 o'clock to meet up, because the liberal city of West Palm Beach sit there and close down the cemetery on Saturdays at 3 o'clock. So we have to do all of our shindig and be out there by 3 o'clock. And then we go have camaraderie at Cracker Barrel in uniform. But this time is going to be really, really, really interesting, because we're going to have the 3 cannons. King David, my cannon. Warren Collett from the Palm Beach camp. He just finally found some lineage through a roundabout way and stuff. So he's becoming a full-fledged member of the James Patton Anderson camp down there in West Palm, Jimmy Shirley camp. And my new friend Tim Campaign, he's the Sons of Veterans Reserves for the Union Sons of Union Veterans Reserves. He's the basically Division of Florida headquarters for the Sons of Union Veterans. And he's a retired doctor, and he stepped into the position, and super, super nice guy. We had a homeschool group that we did, and he's going to bring his cannon. He's got a 12-pounder Mountain Howitzer pack cannon, and a pack cannon is designed to be able to lift up, pop the wheels off, put them on the mules and stuff, and put the barrel across the top of the mule. And another mule carries a powder box, projectile box, the limber box, and they mosey on with it. And it's like having a little 4-wheel drive unit and stuff, just to pick up your cannon and haul it around for you.
So the pack cannon is smaller than a Mountain Howitzer?
Yeah, the carriage for the Mountain Howitzer is smaller. It's about probably about maybe 32 inches wide between the wheels, and he had it made from the original specs and stuff. And he has a wheelwright, which is the guy that builds the wagon wheels and stuff, up in Atlanta, that made the wheels exactly to the specs that he has for this booklet he has, and the book he let me borrow his stuff to look through it and get all the specs for all the colors of paint and everything and stuff from my Canon. And it's just, the guy is amazing. And he's got a small horse. I think it's a quarter horse named Whiskey, and Whiskey's got full union tack, and he's going to see if he can bring the horse down there and do the funeral horse with the boots in the backwards and the saddle and stuff and everything like they do for the old guard up there in Arlington. And the guy is just, he's very dedicated. He wants to sit there and bring the SUV and the SUV together, and sit there and stop all this rhetoric and stuff in the tracks. And because we already have H.K. Egerton, we already have Nelson Winbush. Thank God for these guys. They have that side of it covered, and now we can sit there, combine, and shut them down instantaneously. So we're gonna have 3 cannons down there on Saturday the 22nd at 2:00. Everybody's invited to come down and be a part of it. Bring your muskets, because we want to turn this into a full-fledged, awesome event. And all 3 cannons, we're gonna wake the woke.
You don't have to have permits or anything, do you? Or you don't care?
Not yet. Yeah, we have a saying in the Navy and stuff: it's easier to ask forgiveness than to beg forgiveness than ask permission. And so we're going to be really jacking it up. And we got to backtrack afterwards to go back up to a couple of cemeteries. One to Cuesta, where we have a brand new guy. Man, I can't remember his name now. It was right on the tip of my tongue. But he's a Confederate veteran, and his 2 sons were deputies with the sheriff's department there in Palm Beach. And he was headed they were headed to his bank robbery and stuff. They got there, and the bank robbers killed both his boys just before he arrived. So he's buried there in Tequesta at the Riverside Cemetery. So we have 2 veterans in there now. One of them is Edward Kovar, Captain Edward Kovar, who was the first sheriff of Palm Beach County when it was founded. So there's the grave site, the cemetery there, Woodlawn, was built by Henry Flagler to move some area around and stuff and create a nice cemetery there, so that when the elderly came down on the boats and everything else, and came down to visit the breakers, he sat there and made a cemetery for their kinfolk, so if somebody passed, they could have a nice place to be. And it's a beautiful little cemetery.
Cool.
And lots and lots of ancient stones in there. It's beautiful. And so that's going to be on the 22nd, 2:00 in the afternoon. We started at 8:00 in the morning, and we finish up after Cracker Barrel. We usually get back, get done about usually 5, 6 o'clock and everything, and make our way back to our campfires, as to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's gonna be a great time. We just did Okeechobee and stuff, and there's 7 over there. And Tim Campaign and his wife Deidre, they came over there in uniform, and I posted it on George W. Thomas's Facebook page, and I got pictures of my newest rows of my camp's charter there, the Lower Radcliffe chapter. Susie, my sister Mary Elizabeth Fullwood, she's our newest rose, and she's been going everywhere with us and everything and doing everything. She's locked on, and she wanted to know how to fire the muskets, so we had Deidre, my sergeant at arms, Mary Vernon, and Susie. They all sit there and fire the muskets together. So our roses even got to put in a firing on the range.
Cool.
But, it's just, the people that are in the cemeteries over in Okeechobee were some of the founding families that started Okeechobee, including William Rollerson, and his name is on everything in Okeechobee, the hospital, you name it. And for somebody to sit there and say, "Oh, well, these guys were traitors and this, that, and the other," says, "Well, you have no idea what you're talking about, because these are the people that made Florida." And just let's see, last weekend, no, weekend before last, we were down in Miami doing Miami River Days with Fred Parks, and did the Civil War talk down there and stuff. And I had some of the sons of Union veterans down there. My sister's down there with us again, Susie. And about every 2 hours, they sit there, went out there into the field in front of the Warner farmhouse that is the oldest wooden structure south of Lake Okeechobee. It's there in Loomis Park with the Fort Dallas Naval Barracks from the old Fort Dallas Naval Depot, which is the largest naval depot in the state of Florida during the Seminole Wars.
Cool.
But, that's some of the things we've been doing. We've been busy since January. We've probably done, I think, four reenactments now and about a dozen and a half living history events, for the city of Fort Pierce, for you name it. We've back-to-back weekends.
Oh yeah. Well, just about everybody in the SCV OCR is busy this month because it's Confederate Heritage Month. It's also Scottish Heritage Month. So a lot of people are out busy doing one or the other, or if not both.
Yep.
So, Jim, do you want to start getting into blockade? Talking about blockade runners?
Well, people talk about there wasn't any Navy and stuff. The Confederates didn't have any Navy and stuff. And Secretary Mallory, he was just an amazing man. He basically put a Navy together out of nothing, much like our founding fathers with our Continental Navy. It just came out of nowhere and stuff, running wide open, and especially the capturing of Gosport Naval Yard stuff, so that we could get the Merrimack and turn her into the Virginia and go out there and try to break the blockade. The blockade was really not the first blockade that ever took part in the history of the United States. Our founding fathers, we had the same thing with the British blockading Charleston, blockading, Portsmouth and everything else, blockading up there in Fort Henry in 1812. So it's not a new concept. It's just Winfield Scott thought that, he'd sit there and be able to close it out easily and stuff and starve us out. And thank God there's good people that came to the aids of our kinfolk and got them moved out of the way. Matter of fact, down in Jupiter, the Jupiter Lighthouse was built in 1851, I believe, by a young captain, designed and built by a young captain. They started building it, and George Meade, who was the commanding officer, of course, at Gettysburg later on, but for the Union. But the lighthouse down there was a beautiful natural inlet, which is really accessible for the ships to be able to sneak in and get goods and come back out and horse trade and make money for us and everything. And several of the ships down there coming in and out, the blockade runners, were captured by the Roebuck, which is one of the Union men of war that was sitting off the coast there and capturing them left and right and everything. And I think they got like 9 or 10 ships and stuff that they captured. I just found out just recently that up in Fort Pierce, the natural inlet up by the Seal Museum, there were several blockade runners that were captured there. And instead of taking them in and stuff, they captured the guys, threw them in irons, and set the ships on fire and burned them in the river. So once the weather gets a little bit better, I'm gonna get my kayak and get my friend Lucky's underwater metal detector and see if we could find anything to verify it. Because supposedly there's a blockade runners camp that was on the beach there. If we could find any artifacts and everything else, we can prove it, then we can get a way marker put up there for the blockade camp for the Indian River right there. But the blockade runners were basically people with a purpose. one of the most famous ones. We had our Navy, of course, Raphael Sims with the Alabama, cause of hate and discontent, and Captain Tatnell that sit there was the captain of the Shenandoah, fired the last volley of the war for the Confederates up there off of Alaska, up there fighting with the all the different Union ships that were out there trying to protect the whaling fleet and the Russians and everybody else. And he was the last ship to surrender in Liverpool, England, and stuff in November. So, but to push it along is Captain James McKay is one of our favorites. When we decided to create a naval reenactor group, Kim Cullers and I, and try to build a crew so that when guys show up to a reenactment dressed as a sailor, they can know what they're talking about and doing things, so that they would know what's going on. And so we just sit there and created the group of stuff, and we was going to call it the CSS America and the USS America, which was a racing yacht and gunship that was utilized by both the Confederates and the Union. So it ended up we started to use our crew decided to rename it something a little bit more familiar. They found the USS Dale, which had an 85-year service, which is unfortunately one of my favorites, because the cruiser USS Dale was stationed there in Mayport when I was on the John L. Hall. The Kate Dale, though, the Kate Dale is the one we're concentrating on right now, is the Confederate blockade runner that belonged to Captain James McKay. He had 3 ships. Well, he had more than 3 ships, but the 3 main ships he had was the Kate Dale, the Scottish chief, because he was a man from Scotland, and he was Scottish, and the Lindsay, which was a smaller shallow vessel and stuff he used for going up smaller rivers and trading all throughout the Caribbean. But the Kate Dale was loaned to the Muddleland's Cal Cavalry. The 7th Florida was broken up and devised into, part of it was devised into the 1st Florida Special Cal Cavalry. Various companies and stuff that also fought up and down the St. John's. It fought up there at Cedar Key with Captain J.J. Dixon and his men. The Cal Cavalry Coast Guard portion of it was a blockade runner. They sit there and go all the way down to Havana and pick up gold and for cattle and cotton and salt and indigo and stuff, and bring the money back and give a portion of it to the Confederacy for all the good works they did. And many of the crew on their stuff. One of the diaries I came across was a man by the name of Robert Watson. And on my Kate Dale page, you can go through the files there, and there's a PDF there for the diary of Watson, and he has a day-to-day account of what took place. And in there's also a longboat that they used before they actually got onto the Kate Dale and became crewmen, because all of them came up from Key West. There's a letter that I sent Sean there that is to Secretary Mallory with a list of all the men that they were coming up from Key West to be a portion of the Coast Guard, the Coast Guard service and stuff. And they would patrol the coastline there, protect Fort Brooke and Tampa. Tampa was about 200 people, inhabitants at the time, mostly in basically huts before they really got moving with James McKay. James McKay was quite incredible, though. He sat there and was from Scotland, met this beautiful girl over there, and Matilda, and was crazy about her. And the mother would not let him get married, let her get married to him, because he was a sailor, basically, and she didn't want him to be gone all the time and blah, blah, blah. So the mother finally met another guy, was married, and he sit there and disappeared. And she moved with her daughter to St. Louis, Missouri. And James McKay came over to St. Louis, found her, and married her, took her down to Mobile, and was looking at the coastline of Florida and seeing the shipping possibilities for Fort Brooke area for Tampa, and decided to start his homestead there. And because he was a shipping merchantman, he had all his ships there up in the Hillsborough River area there by Ballast Point. And that's where the Battle of Ballast Point took place. But when he kept sending stuff out, and the blockading force there, the admiral sit there got kind of upset about him sitting there sending stuff back and forth. So they came in there one night, and well, before that, him and his son was captured on one of their ventures, headed down to Cuba and coming back. And him and his son were put in the Fort Jefferson and Dry Tortugas in the federal penitentiary. And when somebody found out that there's a 10-year-old boy there, basically all hell broke loose. And they said, well, I tell you what, we'll let you and your son go. You can take your ship back, and if you promise never to do that again. So he sat there and said, I promise never to do it again. So the next night, the Scottish chief departed, headed to Cuba with some more cattle and stuff on it, and went down there, horse traded, got some more gold, and came back. So they got upset. So the Union came in there with their Tahoma and a couple other ships, and they bombed the city of Tampa. They sit there and shelled it ferociously. They destroyed part of his church that he built with this pastor that he met. He had one of his general stores that was destroyed, and part of the graveyard. And the ploy was to shell the city and cause a diversion so that they could push troops ashore. And the troops went up the Hillsborough River, found a Scottish chief, and the Kate Dale was sitting at anchor, and fought the crew off. The crew finally had to abandon the ship. They were overwhelmed, and they set both ships on fire. And they departed, went back to their boats, and some of them were captured by the Cal Cavalry. And there's a illustration of the sailors being captured by the Cal Cavalry and taken prisoner. But my friend Archie Jesse James Marshall is from that area over there, and upon talking to him, the Scottish chief was basically raised up, taken downriver a little ways, and the engine's taken off and put onto another vessel, and the Kate Dale was raised and rechristened the Josephine, and sailed many years after that as a fishing schooner. And beautiful lines. She's about 150 feet long, 28 feet wide, and had a draft of about 22 feet. So, she's a very versatile craft for hauling stuff. And plus, there's a picture of her as the gaff rig schooner. It's the green and white picture, I believe, Sean.
I found it.
Yep. And a magnificent ship. While I was reading through Robert Watson's diary, I found out that one of the longboats they had off another ship, they were using as basically Coast Guard boats patrolling. They were fitted with 4-pounder cannons, and the 4-pounder cannons they had were basically just shore battery cannons that they fitted onto a carriage, like a naval carriage, and was using to help fight off anything that came downriver. But the one of the boats I found is named the Molly Post, and I just happened to have a friend that I acquired a small sailboat from that I used to sail out in California when it's in the Battleship New Jersey sailing team when I got my sailing license. Is basically an O'Day day sailor. And so that's going to be turned into our living history ship, the Molly Post. And out of respect for Robert Watson and the fine men, and I'm going to make a couple of placards and stuff to have for taking to different schools or whatever we do and stuff. So Kim will have his ship, the Forevermore, and I'll have the Molly Post. and we can start our own. There she is. Isn't she beautiful? Look at that.
It
Oh,
took me a little while.
hey, you're awesome, sir. You're awesome. You run a tight ship yourself. But yeah, this is a gaff rig schooner and stuff. Much different than most of the Union ships that were switching over to steam. And that's what the Scottish Chief was a steamer. Had a steam plant, but uh, like I said, it had a keel that came down, a centerboard keel that came down, so she could navigate all the way up into the Hillsborough, all the way up to the other end. Before the Army Corps of Engineers came along and dug it out and made the barge canal that we used to do the Hillsborough River Raid at. And I've actually rode before I had my hip replaced. I actually was on the crew for the Hillsborough River Raid. Out there on the boat as a Union sailor, because that's what Archie told me. He says the only way you'll be on there is to be a Union sailor. I was like, well, I used to be a Navy sailor, so anything I can do to get out there, because I'd studied and read about orders, the oarsmen and helmsmen and everything. But the Cape Dale made several trips, and the Scottish Chief and the Lindsay made several trips down to Cuba, and the Cal Cavalry was formed too for a couple of reasons. One is to defend the coastlines. They set up basically signal areas along the coast and everything. And then the Cal Cavalry provided another service, which was a post runner, which would go from post to post to take messages. So the blockade runners and stuff can have kind of a heads up of when they can leave, when they can't leave. They have plenty of people out there keeping an eye out, allowing them to have a safe transit to get back home and get away again.
Hey, Jim, how much info do you have on the blockade runner that sailed out of the Sarasota area from Gamble's plantation?
Well, I'm not really keen on that one and stuff. What was the name of it?
I don't remember. I stopped in a Gamble's mansion last year on my way to Division Union and did the tour, and I forget the name of it. Anybody in the chat remember the name? Before what's his name? When the war was ending, I think that was the treasurer or Secretary of State for the Confederacy. We fell back there, hopped on a ship.
Yeah, Jebediah Benjamin.
Yes.
God, I know that. I know the one you're talking about.
Kim is in the chat, Jim. He thinks it was operated by Jacob Summerlin. Because I know Jacob Summerlin, he ran cattle from the Kissimmee area down to my area in Southwest Florida, doing cattle drives and loading them up on ships in Ponderosa and shipped them to Cuba.
Yeah, that's Ponderosa was one of the big shipping ports. They had a really nice channel for being to get in and get out.
Yep.
I know the captain's name, and I know what you're talking about. I just can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember myself.
But there were thousands of blockade runners, but Cape Dale and Scottish Chief were really the only ones that belonged to the Cal Cavalry Coast Guard, and the Cal Cavalry's also got a big monument there in Tampa too.
And they got a decent sized monument right there in Arcadia too.
Yeah. God, what is the name of that ship? That's gonna bug me. I'll find out for you. Yeah, 1st Battalion, Company B of the Cal Cavalry, Special Cavalry CSA, 1863 to 1865, the Plant City Chapter, 1931. By 63, the Confederate Army was suffering severe food shortages. Captain John T. Leslie was commissioned to recruit from the Isthmus area. In Plant City, a company of pioneer men were rounded up and drive wild cattle from Florida north to the railroad stations, and were too young or too old for regular military service. With a great effort, along with other companies in Florida, these men successfully completed their mission and overseeing drives as far north as Charleston.
Correct.
Yeah. So weren't for Florida, them poor Virginia boys and all of them had been starving to death.
You're absolutely correct, because Florida had two big economy at that time, which one was salt and the other one was beef.
Oh yeah. And if you look at Gainesville was used to be called Hogtown because when it was founded and stuff, there was all sorts of farmers and stuff that were coming up there, and there's a railhead there, thanks to David Levy Yulee, and they were able to ship hog futures, pork bellies, back and forth across the state, and put up trains and send them up the East Coast and through Georgia and everything else. But I always thought that was funny. It was Hogtown. Here's Gainesville, Hogtown. But I don't know if you can see this one. This is there you go.
It's the
That's
same.
Yeah. This is the Molly Post. Not very good light there, but that was the longboat that they used, that Robert Watson and his men used for patrolling the coastline there, and it had a sail, but most of the time they rowed because of the time of the season. They didn't have a lot of breeze there, and they rowed that all the way from Ballast Point all the way up to Fort Brooke, and patrolled back and forth under oar power. It's basically a green energy vehicle. They probably got a tax break on it. I don't know, but there's so much to the blockade runners. The Lorette that was captured by the Roebuck there in Jupiter Inlet, the old Jupiter Inlet. It said that she was overstuffed with cotton and indigo and salt that they were transporting. They were leaving when the Roebuck caught them, and they were so weighted down that the water was coming up over the gunnels, and some of it was, from the waves, was splashing down into the cotton and basically almost sinking them. And they were overweighted, so they couldn't maneuver real well. And the Roebuck just came up on them and kept firing across their bow, and finally just heaved to and said, "Okay, we're not going to be able to get out of here." So they took the boats and they take them down to Key West, and they basically put them on the auction block, and anybody that wanted them could buy them for like nothing, with cargo, so they were selling them to all over the Caribbean and everything else and stuff, and a lot of those people were buying them and giving them back to the Confederacy, which is kind of funny when you think about it in the long run. Basically recycling back then. Yeah, they never gave me one though, so that's kind of sad. I could have used it. But,
so Jim, what was the main purpose of a blockade runner?
Basically, the blockade runners, when Winfield Scott sit there and shut down all of our ports, all the way from Norfolk all the way down to Texas, they were trying to blockade all the ports to starve them out, and they did a pretty decent job. There's not any goods coming in. They capture all the ships coming in and out of port and stuff, and the blockade runners, people like Mr. William Ladd up there in St. Mark's, he gave one of his ships, the CSS Spray, to Florida to help defend St. Mark's Inlet. James McKay, he was a merchantman. Yeah, he had his business was invested in all three or four of these ships, and he couldn't get his goods out. They blockaded. They captured his ships, and the blockade runners was designed to be able to get goods to market, and then bring goods that we needed back here. Ammunition, money, gold, especially from down in Cuba. They take cattle and indigo and everything else down there, and salt, especially salt. Salt was more precious than gold because nobody had refrigerators. You couldn't keep food and everything, so everything had to be salted. So they salt the pork, salt the beef and everything and stuff. Take it down there, and and take live cows and everything, cattle down there and stuff, and sell them for gold to the Spanish, and then come back. Uh, the basic idea is it to um, keep Florida running, because when Florida, like the other states, seceded, it became the Confederate States of America, but also they were their own sovereign state, their own sovereign rules and their own sovereign laws. They were their own sovereign nation. Just like before they signed the Declaration of Independence with all, like Virginia and everybody signed the Declaration of Independence. They're their own sovereign nation, and Georgia, uh, South Carolina, and Delaware, and some of the areas in New York didn't want to sign the Declaration of Independence to break away from the crown, because they knew if they lost, the crown's going to have their thumb on top of them. Just like when the South sit there and ended up having to surrender, the Reconstruction period, that didn't work out so well. And even my grandmother, born in 1887 in Cocoa, she lived in a military district in Florida, which was all the South, all the way up until the 1920s, when they finally sit there and changed it, and got away from the military law aspect of it. Because when you got in trouble, you didn't go to a jury of your peers, you went to the provost, and if you were not on his good list, you could be hung by the neck until dead, or thrown in prison, for your days. So the blockade runners were one of the greatest assets to help keep us alive. Just like our founding fathers, the same thing, back in the 1700s. History repeats itself over and over again, and that's where people get these ideas about, this happened then. Let's break the blockade, get out of here and be able to get to where we're going and bring goods back to our people. That was the whole idea behind keeping us alive, because people were starving to death. I mean, people had nothing. The pioneers in Florida, they started out with nothing, of course, but they started developing the cities and stuff. And Jacksonville, of course, was a larger city and had a fairly stable environment for shipping back and forth. And that's why the Union first tried to capture Jacksonville, and they captured Pensacola, and they were trying to capture all the big ports so they could just squeeze us, put the screws to us and just squeeze us down. So that's one of the main reasons the blockade runners were so effective. I mean, they tons and tons of ships were getting captured. A matter of fact, Colonel James Payne, who was stationed at Fort Capron during the Second Seminole War, or Third Seminole War rather, with Ambrose P. Hill as the commander, he was stationed there. And when the war between the states broke out and the blockade runners were getting captured and stuff, he and some guys went down to Jupiter Lighthouse and stole the lens and the lighting apparatus out of it, and buried it, and so that the blockade runners could get through and do their job. I've been to his grave and everything. I got to get my friend Sean and Jethro up there to help try to rebuild those stones or something. I want to get him a veteran's headstone too. Him and his wife. The headstones are just laying on the ground and they're all broken apart, but they're just like laid right. And I don't know if he could form them or something and do something to fix them. But he deserves a veteran's headstone because he was in the Seminole War and was an asset to our our good country, our good state and stuff to help the blockade runners be able to get to where they're going.
Cool.
But it's amazing some of the history of these people in Florida that served. One of the guys we go visit every year for our Confederate Memorial Day is James Russell, who was in the Army, joined the Army and stuff, and was mustered out. And he went and joined the Navy, the Confederate Navy, and ended up being captured on a blockade runner that was over in the Bahamas at the time. And he was, got pardoned and everything at the end of the war. Was released from prison over there, and came back. And there's stories of him that my friend Joe Ellen Wilson, who's a historian for the Historical Society, told me about. She's got an entire essay on Russell alone. That one day he was a fishing guide and everything, and he took this guy out fishing, guy from up north on his boat, and the guy got out in a storm and stuff, and the guy's dog sit there and was laying on the deck and freaked out all of a sudden from lightning or something, and jumped over the side of the ship. And James Russell jumped over the side of the boat and rescued the dog out of the water and brought him back to the guy. So the guy was, really grateful to him and everything, and gave him all sorts of promotions, to other people and stuff, saying, this is the guy you need to take with you out fishing because he knows where the fish are and how to get out of the storms and where the reefs are and everything. He's like the greatest asset you could find around here. So, out of the 44 that we're going to be visiting from my end here on next Saturday on the 22nd, about 90% of these guys were residents here and made Fort Pierce in St. Lucie County and Indian River County what it is today. James Enos Fultz, a matter of fact, he was on the first circuit court of clerk of the court for St. Lucie County when it was formed, and also on the first grand jury. And before he died, he was the editor of the Bureau newspaper, and very super intelligent man. And his family established the first pioneer settlement down close between Stewart and Fort Pierce called Spruce Bluff. And his daughter actually named it Spruce Bluff because of all the spruce trees there. But he delivered mail by boat up and down the river to people and stuff. And I think he got paid like $8 a month for getting his boat, getting the mail, taking it out to people. It's like, oh yeah, big time.
All right. Kim just said this. The newspaper in Jacksonville was called the Jacksonville Times Union. The name harking back to the WBTS when they were two newspapers in Jacksonville. One with the Confederate News.
Very cool, Kim.
Yeah.
Learn something new every day.
I know that, we're planning. I'm planning on getting Kim back on the show, guys. As soon as he feels better and back to his own self again.
Yeah, he's one of the greatest athletes I've ever met.
Oh yeah, I mean, up there in Narcoossee talking with you and him, I learned quite a bit from Kim within just 5 minutes.
Oh yeah.
So, does anybody have any questions on blockade runners? We're at the we're almost at the end of the show.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kim. You're welcome, Kim.
And if y'all find out the information, send it to me. My email is always open. The JJog 569_2000 at yahoo.com, or just go on our sites. My campsite, my Facebook for our CSS Cape Dale, USS Dale, because I love history, and the more I can learn about it, the better I feel. I've been doing this since 2002, doing reenacting, and I learn something new every time I go somewhere to a battle or to a living history. It's always, especially old timers. And if you have family, ask them questions, because I have so many questions that I can't answer because there's none of my family around, elder wise, that are left that really know, you know, why this happened, when it happened, and
Oh, you
everything.
got your nephew that isn't that your nephew that plays Santa every year?
Oh yeah, yeah, my little bouncing baby nephew.
In case he's watching, I want to give him an attaboy.
And, yeah, if you need a Santa Claus, he's the real Skatan. And Felice has been doing Mrs. Claus with him and stuff, and they're a good team. You know, they put on a good show wherever they go.
Yeah,
They got several gigs and stuff, including with the Pirates of the Treasure Coast. Our friends Kathy and Mike Griffith. They go and do Christmas in July. They do uh, Christmas events with them and everything and stuff. And he's got Alan's got a kind of a wide clientele now with Howard Dunn from our hometown. His I think his mom just passed away, but he's real big into you know, helping the community, helping Fort Pierce and St. Lucie County, and you know, keeping everything going, especially for the kids, because that's what this world's about is kids. Because you know, we just went. I just did my second Hunley down in Boca Raton for one of my fellow reenactor's sons. Of course, his son was a reenactor at our right on Fort Pierce as a color bearer, and he got the Hunley and stuff. Is my first Hunley I did that was Navy, and oh my God, it just blows the rest of them away.
Jim,
And
I'm glad you brought that up. For a lot of our viewers, what is the Hunley Award?
oh, the Hunley is basically a doormat to be able to get into schools and talk about the Sons of Confederate Veterans for one. But the Hunley was designed in South Carolina, which a lot of great programs come out of South Carolina. You just can't believe it. And our Guardian program started there too. But the Hunley and stuff was the first submarine ever to attack an enemy ship in combat successfully and sink it, the Housatonic. And it was kind of a crazy dream, but there was one during the Revolutionary War called the Turtle. It was very slow, but this was a hand-propelled design and had a 7-man crew, including the pilot. They would go out and go find these ships and stuff and place a torpedo, which basically an explosive, more like a keg of powder, on them and blow them up. And they had problems with doing that, so they finally designed a spar that they could stab into the side of the ship and back off and detonate it and blow a hole in the ship, which that worked quite well. The only problem is it took the first two crews died in the training. They sunk to the bottom and couldn't release the ballast. And the second crew was with H.L. Hunley, was the pilot, and his design. So he died on board that one and stuff. And then Lieutenant Dixon was put in charge to find a crew and stuff and got him and took these guys, whipped them into shape and took them out to sea. And when they came up in the Housatonic and everything broke loose, they were shooting at them and everything. They sit there and put their round the torpedo into the side of the ship and backed off. And they opened up their blue signal light to let people on land know that they were successful in their endeavors. But when the ship blew up, they were never heard from again. And they when they recovered the Hunley, all 7 men were still at their stations, ready to turn the props and everything, get it underway. But they again couldn't release the ballast and stuff, so they sank to the bottom. And Lieutenant Dixon and all of them made a pact that if something happened, that they'd open the seacocks and just flood the boat instead of going through the agony of suffocating. They would just flood the boat and basically bonsai commit suicide. But
Right. Well, Jim, thank you for coming on. That's all the time we have for tonight. You can find Jim Odell on Facebook. Send him a friend's request. Hit him up if you have any more questions or comments about the Confederate Navy. Same with Kim Colors that was commenting in the chat. When I have questions about the Confederate Navy, especially here in Florida, I go to those two.
Yeah.
So with that being
It's
said,
good to be here.
yeah.
Also, we have our gunner, Talisa Wilson. She's the ship's gunner for the Kate Dale. And Richard Halsey is now our quartermaster for the ship. So we have a good crew forming, and they're the best of the best.
Yep.
I'd stack them against any Union ship or any modern day Navy in the entire world.
Yep. All right. We're gonna end this on a video on Faces of the SCV. Thank you all for joining the conversation. So stay Southern. Keep the flags flying. Get out there, flag a Confederate grave. Till next time, have a good night.
God bless you guys. Be safe.
My dad told me he always had a kinship to the battle flag. Always growing up, he knew there was something there, but he couldn't put it together. I called my 97-year-old grandmother, and I asked her, do we have any soldiers in the family? I gave her 3 descriptions. Verde, which means green, for modern-day soldier. Blue, azul, or gris, means gray. And she said, mijo, which means my son in Spanish, is gris. It was gray. My great-great-grandfather was named Andres Torres Rodriguez. He was born in Mexico. He was a laborer. And he was in 8th Texas Infantry, and his unit later on got incorporated to the Texas 33rd Cavalry under Santos Benavides, who was the highest Mexican-American Confederate officer. He was a colonel. There was over 13,000 Hispanic soldiers throughout the Confederate States, but out of those 13,000 were 2,500 Tejanos. And it's 2 words combined. Texas in Spanish is Tejas. Mexican in Spanish, Mexicano. You combine both words, Tejano. They contributed a lot for Southern independence. I think that they deserve respect, honor, and dignity under the Confederate flag that they fought for. There was people of color, Mexican people, and other Hispanics, and other people of color that fought in this war. Everyone's reason was different, but primarily they fought in this war for their independence and to protect their homeland. I joined the SCV because I'm extremely proud of my Confederate heritage. I have Confederate DNA. I just want to ensure that the present generation and future generations know and never forget the contributions of Hispanics in the War of Northern Aggression. I am Richard Luna Garcia, the great-great-grandson of Private Andres Torres Rodriguez, a Tejano Confederate soldier.
Thank you for joining. Have a good night.